Gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? It's time for the final countdown. The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's rock.
It's the world according to Woot. It is the world according to Woot. According to Woot. Good evening, Simi Valley.
Hi, you guys. Welcome to our third edition, season 2 of WAW. Jim and I. Oh, wait, you're not Jim. What's going on?
I am Jim.
All right.
This is what I really look like.
No, just kidding, guys. I wanna introduce, and I'm sure you guys all know, my great friend and co-host, Gary Gig Grantham.
Thank you, Brenda.
So we have a very special show tonight, and this is a show that a lot of people have been asking for, and we decided to give it to you.
Yeah.
We're going to give it to you.
You know, tonight, the world according to Woot is really more the world about Woot, according to Brenda and Gig.
Well, and who better to interview Woot than us?
Thank you. And I know that you and Jim always say, every week you say, what is your slogan for the world according to Woot?
Where important topics of the day are largely ignored.
And foolishness reigns supreme.
reigns
I would like
I'm going
to
to pull us
thank,
down just a second.
Okay,
Sorry,
yeah.
it's very unprofessional, but
I am going to be so bold as to say that tonight it's the world according to Woot is all about real investigative journalism.
Yeah.
And we ask the hard-hitting questions.
yeah, that's exactly right.
You think that'll happen actually?
And I feel like we will. I feel like I say that all the time. I feel like
That's all right.
you always make fun of me when I do that.
And I'm going to make fun of you every time you say 100%. tonight.
I've been doing that lately.
Lately?
No, just have I done that lately? No, I feel like I've been doing.
Sorry
that a
about
lot
that
lately.
cackle laugh. That's the way the night's going to be.
No, but when you say 100%, that means you absolutely, totally agree with them, right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
true.
All right. 100%. Are you picking my hairs off the table?
That's just too.
This is backstage stuff. All right. So we have a super special show for you guys tonight. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Let me actually see who's joining us. We can see.
Oh, yeah.
We got Becky, we got Shelly, we got Kelly, Bob Bacon.
Wow, look at
Bob
all these
Bacon
beautiful
has
people.
been solid.
Hi, Bob.
Solid. Thank you guys for
John
joining us.
Deere. Hello. Hey, Rick.
So this is going to be a
Kelly.
fun night of getting to know past, present, and future of the Woot,
Yeah.
as I like to call him.
Yes.
As I like
Well,
to
you
call him.
refer to him as Jim Wootten. I mean,
I
I
do.
don't know. I think you people all know this, especially if you watch WAW with any regularity. You know, Brenda will always refer to, well, Jim Wootten says this. Well, Jim Wootten doesn't like that. Yes, I was talking to Jim Wootten. Jim Wooten's calling me.
He always says, you can refer to me on a first name basis, but I don't know, it's something special about Jim Wootten.
Yeah,
Right?
uh-huh.
You have to say Jim Wootten.
Yeah, it works.
I don't know why. So anyway, what do we have on the horizon, Gig?
You mean like with me? and
Yeah,
stuff?
with you.
Well,
What's going on with you?
Thank you, Brenda. You know, there are things, and it's funny. I mean, I like to start just getting real and transparent right away. You know, yesterday.
Jim's outside.
Yesterday and the last couple of days professionally for me have been a little bit challenging. There are, you know, some fires to put out and some hurdles to hurdle. But then, you know, I leave my office at the end of the day and I think I'm still, you know, I'm an entertainment professional. All the challenges I have are to do with that. And, you know, I could be making sandwiches and facing those challenges. So I feel okay. But there are a lot of things that our office has been working on, and some of you know about them. There's a great series that we are about to launch called Tributes Unplugged. we've done it before in past years at the Simi Valley Cultural Arts Center Theater. It's a really charming theater. It's 5 minutes from, not even 5 minutes.
Not even 5 minutes.
5 blocks.
Yeah.
From here,
It's best.
a charming little theater of only about 175 seats, but it's got a nice little balcony. It's got a wonderful PA system and lights. And it's a really great, intimate place to see shows just like this. So,
And it's called the concert series.
it's called Tributes Unplugged.
Okay,
And
all right.
my office produces it there.
Yeah.
And we did kind of a soft pre-launch of it by having TLR do our holiday Eagles Unplugged Christmas kind of thing back in December. That went really well. But then starting next month, we begin with the Everly Brothers Experience, starring the Zemed Brothers,
Yeah, I
who
love the Zemed
you guys
brothers.
had on.
They're amazing. They're awesome.
We have tributes to Dolly Parton with a brand new show that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of developing.
Yes.
Called Love Dolly. We have a Beatles show, a tribute to Queen, a tribute to Creedence Clearwater Revival,
Yes,
John
yes,
Denver, Carole
yes.
King and James Taylor, CSNNY, Tom Petty. We have a couple more unique shows coming up, one in October called Lady Legends. It'll be a tribute to several legendary singers. I won't reveal the star of it, but she's somebody that you know and love in the tribute scene. And then also in December, a show called The Newfangled Four, which is an a cappella quartet. And they're going to do a Christmas show, and they're funny.
Wow.
And yeah.
And
it's
is that going to
unusual.
be
At the Simi Valley Theater as part of the
So that
series.
is Simi Valley and Candlelight. So 2 venues.
Two different things
Two different
completely.
venues.
Candlelight
Yes, yes.
Pavilion. Many of you know that I have a really close association as a concert entertainment provider, and I have for years with the Candlelight Pavilion Dinner Theater in Claremont, one of the absolute most special places that
It's
has
amazing.
ever existed.
One of my favorites.
Absolutely one
Yeah,
of mine, and
one
I
of my
have such warm, special feelings about that place. It's a wonderful place to work for performers. It's a wonderful place to go for audiences. Already this year, I've had a couple of nights at DSB there that went wonderfully. Last weekend, we had Walk Like a Man, the great tribute to Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. This weekend, we have 2 nights of tribute to Neil Diamond
Oh, I love
with
that.
Dean Colley and Hot
One of my
August Night.
favorites. One of my favorites.
The following week, we go into dinner shows, 3 performances of 3 Faces of the King.
What
starring
is that? 3 Faces. Elvis.
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 Starring
Elvis.
2 great
Yes,
Elvises,
Elvis. Yes.
bringing us the
Yes.
eras of early Elvis, 1968 comeback Elvis in the black leather,
Oh, okay.
and then, of course,
All
Vegas
the-
concert years.
Okay, so 3 Faces means the 3 different,
The 3 iconic
I mean, literally
eras
faces
of Elvis.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there in February, the 12th, 13th, and 14th, so right into Valentine's Day, there we're going to have the Zemed Brothers doing the Everly Brothers Experience.
And
So
they are, I mean, fantastic musicians, but I have had the pleasure of knowing them personally.
Yeah.
And they are wonderful.
they really
wonderful.
are. I really love those guys,
Humble
Zach and Dylan,
guys,
and
talented, humble,
Yeah.
and just all around. just
Burley, their
amazing.
drummer, and you know, they're
Yeah.
just
I love them.
yeah,
Love
yeah.
'em.
It's just, you know, wonderful when you find people that are so good to work with backstage and on stage.
Talented and humble.
Yeah.
That's, I mean,
I'd like our guest tonight,
I mean,
just full of himself.
Jim Wootten, I always say, and I live it because I'm married to him, and people are like, your husband is so nice. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I know. And I can't even say but.
No,
I can't even say but. I have to say, yeah, thank you.
I know. So
So am I.
what's on the horizon for WAW?
So WAW, we are finishing up because, as you guys know, in October, my mom died. So we lost probably about 3 or 4 weeks where we had guests lined up. So we're going to finish up the last part of our guests, and we are going to do a new kind of feel called Stories from the Road.
Ooh, I like that.
And it's going to be pretty fun.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a lot of stories from the road, but I promise you that everybody else probably has stories from the road, and we're going to hear them.
Now, okay. So it'll still be done from this location.
It will, but it won't be one person. It'll be several people, which will be a little more challenging, I'm sure.
Yeah. And are they going to be, you don't have to, I'm asking because
Yeah.
I literally don't know.
Yeah.
So are they going to be on the road in many cases? They probably will be.
Well, I don't know.
You might
I mean,
catch
we're
people
still
while they're
kind of-
traveling.
We're
yes.
still kind of thinking about that, but
Okay.
but that might not be a bad idea.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That might be a little challenging Wi-Fi wise and
Yeah.
trying to get them to stream.
Sure.
But we're definitely going to hear some funny stories, and we have funny stories, and we'd love to hear everybody else's funny stories as well.
That's a good one.
So
Yeah.
I feel like, I feel like I said it again.
Has Eddie Stevens joined us?
I don't know.
Okay, because
No,
obviously
because
there's
he's-
not,
No,
the
because
hair
he
is not
doesn't
going to
have
be as
hair.
great.
Hey, David Brighton's joining us. Hey,
David!
Manny.
Oh, hey, David. Good to see you. Hey,
Thank
man.
you guys. So as you guys know, we're going to talk to Jim Wootten, and we're going to
Yeah.
find out. I mean, he's got a pretty cool story. I mean,
Just one,
Yeah.
but yes, it's pretty
just
cool.
one, and
Yeah.
and that's it. We'll be done by 8:15.
Oh, yeah, easily.
7:15.
Oh yeah, by some. That's 4
And
minutes.
I see him in the chair. But so Jim is a part of many trips, and he is
I shake my head.
involved in so many projects, and it's not because he's looking for a payday. I always say Jim does not care if he's making $1 or $1,000. He just loves to play.
Yeah, that's
That's
true.
what he loves to do.
Well, I said something, you might remember this, and I'm going to say it again only because I thought it was funny at the time, but I was saying it in a room where people couldn't hear me. When TLR was playing the other night, I was saying something about how we were playing, honestly, for the first time of the year, and it wasn't because people hadn't asked us to appear and play. It was simply because we're all very well to do and we just didn't want to work that hard,
That's
which
right.
of course was a joke.
So
And
more
then
money
I
than we know
pointed
what to do
to
with.
Kevin, who was standing to my left, our wonderful guitar player, Kevin. And I said, well, actually, he is really well off. He can afford to fly here from Boston for the $100 that we're paying him. And people laughed. And then I went on to explain. I said, you have to understand that $100 in musician dollars is 100 musician dollars is different from normal grown-up dollars. For example, it's very much like the difference between dog years and human years.
Yes,
So
true.
100 musician dollars is equivalent to like 700
Yeah.
grown-up regular dollars, because musicians love what they do and are happy to be playing.
Well, and they don't, honestly, I found that most musicians, not all, but most musicians that I've met just want to play.
Yeah.
They don't, well, they do. I mean, you have to pay your mortgage, you have to pay your bills.
Yeah.
So you do care what you're making. And I'm sure most musicians who are on here will agree, but I don't think that's the bigger goal. I think being on stage and playing is the bigger goal for a true musician who feels it in their heart.
Well,
Because-
so many guests that you've had on here have said repeatedly, you hear this all the time. You hear it in green rooms. You hear musicians saying it, musicians of any professional level, especially, that they like to say, we're paid for everything that comes before and after the gig, but during the show, that's the part we would do for free.
Yeah.
And there is a true
Right.
sentiment about that to
That's
some
right.
extent.
That's
But
right.
I'll also add that there's a point at which you realize that entertainment or your passion, whatever it might be, is your living. And sometimes you don't want to go to work. Even though it's the best job in the world, you say, God, I'd rather stay home and stay in my pajamas and watch TV and eat or whatever. And so I think that's when you know it has become your profession. When you realize, I love my work, but it is still work.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wouldn't mind just smelling the roses.
Right.
And that's okay too.
But do you not agree? And I think I've heard Jim say this once or twice or maybe 100 times. The best part of being a musician is when the curtains open and when they close.
Yeah,
That is the best part.
and Jim has
That
said
is the
many
best
times too, and I remember the first time, Jim and I hadn't known each other for very long, but sometime within the first few months or year of us being friends, he quoted for the first time, "Your worst day playing music is still better than your best day at a regular job," and he's lived by that.
Well,
Adage.
yes, because Jim Wootten has managed to turn the work week around.
Yeah.
He's made his weekend from Monday through Friday, or sometimes Thursday, but mostly Friday. And then he's made his work week from Friday to Sunday. How many of you would love to do that? I don't know. Probably in the entire world.
Yes.
3 days, 4 days.
Yes, exactly.
I had to think about how many days are in
Pajamas,
the week.
boxes of See's candy on his chest.
That's right. And we're going
And
to
a
talk
laptop
about
to do
that
promotion.
because maybe there are things you know about Jim and maybe they don't. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're not. So let's go forward.
Let's do it.
All right, let's bring on Mr. Wootten. But before we do that, we're going to do a little clip of, and this isn't even all the bands he's involved in. This is just maybe a handful. I will give you a picture of everything he's involved in.
And your take on that?
And then there's going to be therapy involved in that one. So we will go forward with just a little clip of the things that Jim Wootten is involved in, and then we'll bring Jim on.
And then we'll have dinner.
Yeah. Oh, I'm hungry. All right.
Me too.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome to the stage, the Long Ride.
Love the Eagles, and they sound exactly the same. They're very good. They've got the crowd going, and the crowd just stayed that way for an hour and a half. They sound exactly the same, and it's about $1,000 less.
Coming right behind you, swear I'm gonna find you one of these nights.
Yeah, keep the weather up, keep the weather down, keep the weather stiff, keep them all around. You wanna rock? It's getting to the point where I'm no fun anymore. I am sorry. Teach your children well. Your father's health did slowly go by, helplessly hoping her harlequin hovers nearby, awaiting a word.
I feel the earth move under my feet. I feel the sky tumbling down.
In my mind, I'm going to Carolina. Well, can't you see the sunshine? Can't you just feel the moonshine? I reckon my feet know where they want me to go. And on a country road, city life below us. On my road now.
Welcome.
All right, that's it for us. We're out.
All right. Great
Hey
talking to you.
guys, I'm so excited to be with you tonight, as you can
Well,
see.
welcome. What kind of questions do you have for us? Wait, that's not the way it's supposed to work.
Oh, well. I mean, it could work.
I love the first part of the show. It was absolutely riveting. I couldn't stay away. I mean, I couldn't keep my eyes off of it.
Well, just remember, Gig has to go home. It's you and me.
That's what
Oh,
all
yeah.
hallmarks do.
How
Welcome-
you doing, guys?
welcome to
Or
Wood- so
what's
thrilled.
happening?
We are thrilled to have you as a guest. Actually, I have to say, you and I obviously host the show and Gig is our co-host, but a lot of people have been asking to hear your story. So I think it's time that we hear a little bit about you and what's going on. And if you can, there's questions going on. I don't know if they're to the right or to the left, but if you could try and address some of the
Okay.
questions, because they're flying in right now. Flying
Well,
in. David
I was
Garcia,
just gonna
Larry,
say-
Eddie Stevens. Look at Jim. Okay, I have to acknowledge this. Jimmy, Eddie Stevens. Jimmy, you are my hero.
Yeah, and Eddie, actually, I saw a post from Eddie a moment ago where
Yeah.
he did say, "Hey, Gig, your
Did
hair's
he?
looking good."
Did he? Oh, did he?
Yeah, huge compliment coming from Eddie.
Eddie, did you not acknowledge my hair? He just acknowledged Gigs.
Yes, he did. Anyway,
Eddie wants to know how he gets his hair like this. Well, just pretty much don't get a haircut for the next 10 years.
That's true. That's true. That's true. Well,
I mean,
welcome, Jim. And
Thank
we're,
you.
and we're so thrilled to have you on. And I feel like we should start off with the obvious question. Let's start off from birth. Where were you born and where were you raised?
Okay, so I was born in Glendora in the San Gabriel Valley, and literally was raised in the city of El Monte, California. El Monte. So actually, it's El Monte, I think, is how it's pronounced.
yeah, and I don't know if
For
this.
the gringo pronunciation. What's that?
I was going to say I don't know if this springboards us too quickly past birth. You can regress if you wish, but as we will. But there's a story that I learned tonight, if I may bring it up,
Sure,
about
sure.
that I didn't know. That is still goes back to your days of youth, and we can talk more about the details of what many people know about you, and that is the early musical influences within your family. But your great friend, our mutual friend Todd, plays this story, and this is I want you to repeat this story for everybody, because it's one, as I said, I heard for the first time tonight that had a lot to do with you becoming an instrumentalist.
Yeah, basically what happened was, that's Todd on the left there, and
Well, show Todd.
and then of course Rollo Sandoval on the right hand side. Todd was actually the one in junior high school. We both attended Columbia Junior High, and he was trying to convince me to pick up the bass. He said, "Hey, your dad, is a bass player. You've got the bass, you've got the amplifier there. Why don't you pick it up?" Well, at that time, I was thinking I was going to be a professional basketball player, because I just ate, drank, and slept basketball. That's all I ever wanted to do. I started playing it when I was in second grade, and played all the way up through high school, and really thought that was going to be what I was going to do for a living. However, in 8th grade, Todd talked me into learning a song on the bass. I learned "Color My World" by Chicago. Todd was playing the keyboard, and another friend of ours, Pat Borges, was playing the guitar. And that was the very first song I learned. That was in 8th grade. Now, I didn't continue on with it after that. Didn't kind of, catch the fever for it yet until I was a sophomore in high school. And at that point, I really started to take it seriously. I took a beginning instruments class in high school, and a buddy of mine who was also in the class happened to know Dazed and Confused and How Many More Times, and learned those songs. And really my love for Led Zeppelin at that time was what kind of spurred me on to continue in that direction. And as I came to my senior year, I realized, I love basketball still, but I think I'm going to go in the direction of music.
That's a heavy decision.
Yeah, it really was.
That you figured you were college bound potentially with basketball, right?
Yes.
Definitely.
I had interest from Montana State University at that time, and so I really, it was a tough
That was
decision.
for pottery, wasn't it?
What was that?
That was for pottery, right?
Underwater basket weaving.
But you continued, and I have knowledge of this because when I met you, you continued basketball for almost 20 years out of high school.
Oh yeah, playing in adult
And
leagues.
that was something you loved
Oh
until,
yeah.
until you started becoming injured as an older man.
Yeah, that's right. I did get I had, in fact, what ended up happening with my my basketball days, my adult basketball career ended when I had joined Led Zeppelin, and I had a show at a place called 14 Below in Santa Monica one night. And I had a game earlier that night. The game happened, I believe it was about 7:30. So I played from 7:30 to 8:30. I figured go home, take a shower, go over to Santa Monica, and I'll play my show with Led Zeppelin. Well, that didn't happen because at the end of that game, I had the ball in my hand, and we were up by about 5 points, and one of the opposing players swiped at the ball, missed, poked me in the eye, and tore my right eyelid. So I had to go to Kaiser. They got a plastic surgeon to sew that up, and I never made it to the show. They had to have a guy that played in the previous band fill in for me that night, and I said, "Yeah, I can't allow that to happen again. I've got to be more responsible and just stop doing this now."
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that night. I remember that night because they had to call in a plastic surgeon
Yeah.
because your lid was, I mean, split from eyelid to eyelid. It was pretty crazy. It was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you kept that plastic surgeon's number just in case, as time goes on?
It could come in handy.
There's a, and don't let me filibuster.
no,
I mean, I have a
you
tendency
go, you
to
go.
interview
You
people,
go. I
even
love
sometimes
it.
in real
I
life.
love it.
But one of the things, of course, we share in common, Jim, is that we were born of at least one, if not two, musician parents.
That's right.
It's what they
Yes.
did. We had the influence of a lot of musicians, arts people around us. When you began to take instrumental music, bass seriously, can
Yes.
you remember either a piece of advice or the time in your life when your dad actually said something to you, maybe seeing that you had become serious, that really stuck with you?
Well, it's funny because I remember very early on learning the very first song that I did learn, which was "Color My World." He started to teach me how to sight read, which was extremely difficult, just coming right out of the gate. But it gave me a little bit of a foundation, and I kind of built off of that. He gave me an instructional book from the great bassist Carol Kay, who was in the Wrecking Crew. Played a lot of, hundreds of pop recordings, and I learned a lot from that. But he never, it's funny. He never tried to sway me in any direction as far as my career choice. He kind of left it, in my court. He was happy to help along the way, but he never really tried to put a heavy hand on me to say, you need to do this and go this way. He just allowed it to happen, organically. And early on there, I remember when I first took it seriously as a sophomore, I was playing 3 and 4 hours a day. I would come home, do my homework, and literally just sit in front of the record player learning songs. I had the Led Zeppelin complete songbook. So if there was any song in particular that I was having trouble with, I'd call my dad in. He would read the line and he'd show me how to do it. And so that was a huge help. But I always tell everybody that starting out on an instrument, man, you're absolutely going to get out of it what you put into it. And man, I put my heart and soul into it, like 3 and 4 hours a day. and it had to happen in order for me to be competent and be able to play in a band quickly.
That's right. That's right. And it's very evident with your talent today. But extending off of your father, talk to me about your father. What I know Red Wootten, Lawrence was his name, but give me a little history on what kind of musician he was.
Well, it's funny, growing up, I didn't even realize that he was a musician. He never practiced at home. I never saw him pick up the bass and play at all. But I do remember early on, I used to wake up in the morning, and they used to have like the Gene Autry, arthritis telethons, and I'd turn it on, and my dad was playing in the band. And I thought, oh man, that's kind of cool. But I didn't really understand what kind of a musician he was at that point in my life. He made a living as I was growing up by playing on Gene Autry's show called Melody Ranch. He was in the house band. And I remember the very first time going to watch him play. I was a young teenager. And I actually saw him solo and really stretch out on the instrument. And I was completely floored because I realized, man, this man is a world-class player at what he does. And I gained a whole new respect for him, honestly. And so that was another thing that spurred me on to want me to become a musician, just seeing how good he was and wanting to aspire to be that good myself. I don't think I've ever got there, but
Well, you
you were talking a minute ago about how you poured your heart and soul into it. You practiced 3 and 4 hours a day religiously, and I'm sure people know you still have that ethic. You do. You express humbly and quietly some of the times that that any show that you're going into with any group, any act.
Yes.
You have this goal of, I want to play a perfect show.
Yes.
As much as can be.
Well, I agree. And I'm not a musician, but I watch your work ethic, and I watch your dedication to spending the time in our home studio, which sometimes I don't understand.
Yeah,
and
it's
don't
a dump.
acknowledge. I try to be understanding, but I'm not a musician. But I know the time and effort you put into it, and I know you want to perfect it. And I think any project that you're on, you're going to bring excellence to the table.
Well, so when you saw your dad solo and you went to see him play, and you realized, wow, this is a world-class musician, and that seems like a bit of a turning point. I know, again, growing up as an arts brat and having a lot of influences on me from a lot of different artistic disciplines, there are things that I can't help but carry into every bit of work that I do. And there are certain things that kind of inform my work unconsciously. Even though your dad never really gave you advice and said, you ought to do this, and here's what you need to do, and here's how you have a career, just by example and by osmosis, are there things that you carry with you into your work because of it?
Well, I don't know if I actually was inspired to do what I do now by my dad's work ethic. But for some reason, I've always, especially since entering the tribute world, I've always had an obsession with being as accurate as possible. My greatest reward is for somebody to walk out of a show and say, you know what, I know those bass lines that you're playing. I've heard them on the record, and what you did was exactly what was from the record. That is my biggest reward, because I look at every song as being kind of like a puzzle, and everybody has their piece. And if everybody learns the song correctly, and puts that puzzle together, that song is going to sound exactly like the listener remembers hearing it on the radio. And I love that. I just love the challenge of being able to do that. In fact, David Brighton asked a question. He said, "What was the most difficult song for me to learn bass on in a tribute?" And he probably knows the answer to that, because it was a song called "Space Oddity" by David Bowie. And I'm telling you guys, you wouldn't know it unless you put headphones on and really focused on what was going on in that song. But I heard what was happening, and I said, I've got to learn this song, and I've got to learn every note correctly in place, because this is an absolute masterpiece. And that by far was the most difficult song, because it kind of defied all the rules of standard bass playing. You didn't play the root a lot of the time. There was a lot of runs going on, counterpoint runs that were happening that just made the song what it was. And so that's one thing that I've always had, that type of ethic as far as playing cover music. And I don't know that I got that from my dad, but I know my dad was an excellent reader. He read music like he was reading words on a page, and that always inspired me to go into that direction and learn how to read as well as learn by ear.
So Ray has a question. Was your dad able to see you succeed to the point of you going full-time with music?
No, actually, well, let me see.
No, not really.
He saw me play several times. He would go and see. The very first tribute I was in was a Beatles tribute in the early 80s. But, I don't think he ever, I think he had passed by the time I started making a living with Led Zeppelin, doing only music.
Yeah.
I mean, just maybe a couple of years after, because your dad passed in 2005.
2004. But by the time I got in Zeppelin in 2001, he was at an age where he wasn't able to make it out and go to shows, unfortunately.
Well, I can tell you, he would be very proud. He would be very proud.
Thanks, honey. I appreciate that.
Well, that seems like a segue into Zeppelin, but then again, are there stories that you'd like to hit us with before, like the Beatles band that you played in and so on, that sort of led you to that point? Or do we just skip over that crap?
Well,
I'm kidding.
He started in high school.
That's a good point, Gig. Being in that Beatles tribute band, I didn't realize it at the time, but that kind of set me up for being able to play in Led Zeppelin, because at the time I joined the Beatles group, I think I was 19. I had never sang lead in a group prior to that, but doing the part of Paul McCartney was huge in my overall musical development, because I only played bass at that time. And I realized, okay, so I've got to do all the stuff that Paul McCartney did. So that means I've got to play the piano on Lady Madonna, Long and Winding Road, Let It Be, Fool on the Hill, all that stuff. And I've also got to learn how to play guitar to do Blackbird and Yesterday. So it forced me to learn those instruments. I knew I couldn't fulfill the role unless I was able to play those instruments. So doing that, and I did that for a period of, I would say, probably 5 or 6 years. After that, I joined a group, a 60s band. All we did was, the greatest hits of the 60s, and I played only keyboards, which was another good step in the right direction as far as getting me to be more proficient on the keyboards. Because later on in 2001, when I did join Led Zeppelin, that was required of the John Paul Jones position. Not only did I have to play keyboards at least 25% of the time, but I needed to learn how to play the mandolin, which I had never touched before. I didn't know the tuning for it. It had no chord shapes. So I had to dig right in and learn that instrument in order to be able to play the role of John Paul Jones.
So was that challenging for you? Mandolin, very small. I mean, you're dealing with half the size of a guitar or a bass. So you're really kind of dealing with a very small scale. But
On Jim, it's like playing a spoon.
I know, it's like playing a little miniature something.
Yeah, really, it's like a straw. Yeah.
So was that, did you enjoy the process? Did you,
well, yeah, initially when I got my first mandolin, it was a $150 Fender, mandolin that I got on Musician's Friend. You're right. I could barely fit my fingers, in between the frets. It was extremely difficult. And, I had watched a lot of YouTube videos as far as learning how to learn, going to California. That's the way. Got all the sheet music for it, and that helped a lot. But yeah, that was a real challenge. And literally a week after I got it, they were expecting me to play Going to California live. So it was kind of got thrown into the fire pretty quickly there.
All right, so let's fast forward to 2001 when you joined Led Zeppelin. But let me kind of throw a little bit of what was your first tribute band before Zeppelin? What was your first introduction to the tribute world?
Okay, yeah, it was actually Deja Vu, which was the name of the Crosby, Stills, and Nash tribute.
Yes, you did not run, of course.
No.
What was that?
You didn't lead that group.
Not at that point.
No,
right?
I answered an ad to be in that group. And I actually went in doing the David Crosby vocal initially and playing bass. As time went on, of course, I loved that music and I kept it going in some form. That was in 1999. So I've been doing it for like 23 years in some form or another. And Gig, you've been a part of that process as well. I think you joined us in maybe like 2007. That
sounds about right. I know that I've been involved in one way or another with most of the iterations that you've had of a CSN and Y thing. And it's been marvelous, Yes. As we both know, and Brenda will roll her eyes about just again when you have only so much time, and these days, I mean, you are the create tribute bands factory, but more than that factory.
Hold on, I'm going to need to roll my eyes.
But one thing that we talked about in recent years was, wow, I mean, even if you're not going to have as much time to devote to each project, God, let's make every one of them the best it can be.
The best.
Really put effort into it. And I do think that the current iteration of Deja Vu, as we've both said many times, I mean, I don't mean to veer you off the path, is really formidable and joy.
Oh yeah, I love doing it, Gig. I love that music, and I've seen a few questions here. Everybody asking about learning the other instruments. David and MG, wondering if I was self-taught, and yes, I didn't. I was never given lessons on either the guitar or the keyboard or mandolin. So I just kind of, learned it myself as I went along, and still do that today with the Zeppelin stuff. Although there are some parts of those songs, like Rain Song, when you listen to the orchestration of it, it's so intricate, and I want to make sure I'm playing the correct inversions of the chords. So I will read the sheet music to make sure it's correct. But yeah, I was self-taught in that respect. And then Larry asked about what about singing lead and arranging the harmonies. Well, that all came from the Beatles experience as well, because my first experience singing lead and doing Paul McCartney, that was no toy for tots. I'll tell you, that was tough, working through that stuff and being able to play it and sing it at the same time. But I realized at that point, somebody needs to take on the role of learning the harmonies and teaching them to everybody else, because I looked around the room and I said, I don't see anybody else, having an interest in this. So I really delved into that hard. And, there were some parts where I'm thinking, oh man, we were singing fifths on that. Why didn't I not hear the third on that part? And, but it was one of those things, the more I did it, the more I listened, the better I got at it. And now I pretty much try to be the guy that arranges the vocals in most of the bands that I'm in.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. You certainly do a hell of a lot, and have for years in in the TLR show, making trainers for every part.
So we know you joined Led Zeppelin in 2001, but when did you join? When did you join TLR?
I joined TLR in 2004 because I was in Zeppelin 2001.
Yeah.
And a few years into it, I realized that man does not live on lead alone.
So let's just start. So I want to talk about TLR.
That's okay.
Let's talk about how you became a part of Led Zeppelin, and then let's talk about how you became a part of TLR.
Okay, so I was playing in Deja Vu, and remember we formed a kind of a sister group to that, which was Heart of Gold, Neil Young tribute, which was playing pretty regularly, but for poor money. We were making $50 to $100 a guy every show, and so I branched off from that, and I joined a Journey tribute called Infinity, which was out in Ventura, with a guy named Dave Coyle and the singer Rick Snyder. And I was playing in that for about 6 months. Well, one night we're playing at Palladino's with Heart of Gold, and Swan Montgomery happened to be the sound man at that show. He mixed our set.
He was moonlighting because he was, yes.
Oh yeah, Swan is an incredible sound man.
So
He's been doing it for so long.
Yeah, he was filling in the gaps.
And so afterwards, he asked me, he said, hey, do you happen to know any Led Zeppelin music on the bass? And I said, man, are you kidding? That was my favorite group of all time. Growing up, John Paul Jones is probably the reason why I loved playing the bass so much. So he said, oh, okay, well, that's good to know. From time to time, we need a sub in Led Zeppelin. Well, in 2001, Swan split off from the guys he was playing with in Ventura. And he called me up and he says, okay, Jim, this is what's going on. We have a show at Palladino's with Led Zeppelin. I'm not with the other three guys that I was playing with. So I've called Steve Zukowski, Jim Kersey, and yourself. And what I want to do is put together a set list of as many songs that we know in common, get together on Monday night for a rehearsal, play through those songs, and then do the show on Saturday. He says, are you game for that? And I thought about it and I said, yeah, I think I am. So that's what happened. And it just kind of hit the ground running. We got so busy with that group. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to continue on with the Journey group or Heart of Gold at that time, because we were just started to play every weekend with Led Zeppelin. And that kind of was what I did from 2001 to 2004. And once I realized, there are some weekends where we're starting to have some holes, I started exploring the idea of joining another group or starting an Eagles tribute. That was initially our intent. I was playing with Dennis Snyder and Gary Ricciardi, who was a member of TLR for a while, and a guy
with us right now.
Well, yeah, he passed a few years ago, unfortunately. And then Jay Lefkowitz, who was a singing drummer. And so we contacted TLR and said, hey, is there anybody in the group that happens to play Joe Walsh that could fill in for our group? We had a guy that was a multi-instrumentalist that could play pedal steel and lead guitar, which TLR was in need of at the time. So we said, why don't we, kind of help each other out in that respect. But then I actually talked to Gig on the phone, and we started just discussing the possibilities. And Gig said, hey, would you consider becoming the bass player of TLR? Our current bass player is going to be switching to keyboards in order to accommodate that change. And so I jumped on that. It was like, are you kidding? To enter into a group that is already established, it was a perfect opportunity. So that's how I started in TLR.
So, and it's been a long time friendship and an amazing.
Well,
ride.
we tolerate each other.
Yeah, we love each other.
We love each other greatly, greatly. One thing I want to interject there that about both Zeppigend and TLR by contrast, and back to that early when Swan first called you three other guys together and said, let's try this. And you correct me if I'm wrong on this, but my understanding is that very early on, I credit Swan with coming in with a wisdom.
Yes.
And basically saying, okay, guys, for the first year and a half or two or whatever it is, we are going to play any place that they will have us.
Yeah.
For
That's
whatever
right.
the money is,
right.
basically.
And they did.
And that was wise.
That's right.
And I think that I do see, and when I say by contrast to TLR, in the early days of the long run, this happened to an extent. We had some guys that had done some touring and felt that they had been around the block. So they had in their heads kind of like a financial minimum per guy and didn't maybe want to start the car, so to speak, for less than. And the group, prior to my stepping into the leader role of it, we were pickier, I think. And Zeppigend slugged it out on every stage, large, small crowd, big crowd, indoor, outdoor, good money, bad, know.
That's right.
To establish the group and establish the name. And I think TLR in the first years didn't work that aggressively. And in my view, that smartly, and should have. But, so we do see bands doing that sometimes now.
Yes.
And we can go on talking much more about, the competitive world that Tributes is, and that's, an ongoing topic. But I but that is pretty accurate that Swan pretty much said that to the group, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. He said, guys, we could be playing for next to nothing, but his philosophy was, we'll just play anywhere and anywhere, everywhere and anywhere.
Yeah.
Because if we're as good as we think we are, the cream is going to rise to the top.
That's
and
right.
we're going to be playing the venues that we're coveting right now. House of Blues, Canyon Club, Coach House, Grove, all of those places that we are currently commanding. Those were our goals. Those were the places we wanted to play. And so in order to do that, we figured, let's just, start building our audience. There was no email list at that point. So we were literally sending out, newsletters by snail mail to people, letting them know about our shows. And Brenda was in there on the ground floor of that too. She helped us with a lot of that. And it was invaluable to establishing the draw that when we did finally start playing House of Blues on, weeknights, we were drawing big crowds. And that was our goal. Finally got into a place where we could negotiate into playing on a Friday and Saturday night. And all of that hard work paid off. His strategy was his strategy was sound in going that direction with it.
So let's fast forward. So let's fast forward to Okay, so Zeppican, Long Run, those are your two main gigs. But you had some pretty cool visits from some key members of the main band, Zeppican and the Eagles. So talk to me about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, for those of you out there that don't know, in 2004, January of 2004, Jimmy Page, that was it. Jimmy Page actually showed up at the House of Blues on Sunset, came to our show, sat through the entire thing, went back to the green room, and we got to meet him, took this picture with him. And it was just a huge moment for us. I mean, it was not anything that we ever expected to have happen, but it kind of catapulted our career from that point forward, because it gave us instant credibility. Everybody else figured, okay, so if Jimmy Page likes these guys, why would we not? And so we just kind of started playing internationally at that point. People from Canada, South America, Mexico. We went out on some tours to Bosnia, Kosovo, to play for the troops, Germany. And all of that was basically based upon the fact that, Jimmy Page was so effusive in his praise for the group. And so that was a huge step for Led Zeppelin at that point. That led to us being invited by Jimmy Page's manager to go see Led Zeppelin's reunion show at the O2 Arena in 2007, which was another incredible experience for us. But meeting Jimmy Page, that man, for me, that had to be right up there with, I mean, the only other guy I could think of that has that kind of rock and roll icon status in the world today would be Paul McCartney for me.
Yeah.
It was an incredible, thrilling experience. The other one,
in that photo, I think that's the most Richard Branson looking that Jim is.
Virgin Airways.
How do you want about it, Jim? Because
but that photo started an amazing ride where we did a lot of, benefit concerts, and then we got to be at the O2 Arena in London. So, but there's also another really special visit that you had.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you were going to that, and then I interrupted you.
Yeah.
No, that was that was in there we go. That was 2017, I believe. We were doing 2 shows on a Sunday at the El Portal Theater in North Hollywood, and we did the first show, and everything went well. In between those shows, we got word that Randy Meisner was going to be in the audience for that evening. And I got to tell you, it was really, I was going through so many emotions, because I'm thinking, I'm going to be playing this stuff for the guy that, had written all these bass lines, wrote Ticket to the Limit, and I'd have to sing that for him. In fact, Larry Paschal asked earlier on about that particular song. He said that Randy Meisner always was very stressed out about having to sing that song live, because he was worried about hitting that last note. And it is always a stressful thing for me too, Larry. I never go into it, feeling really comfortable about it until I've actually sung it. But the other night when we played with TLR, and I was coming off a pretty bad cold. In fact, I want to apologize to everyone for last week. Monday night, I got extremely sick. Wednesday rolled around, and there was no way I was going to be able to do WAW. I was so sick. We just decided to shelve it, and wasn't starting to feel well until Friday of that week, when I played with Pure Bred, and then the next night with TLR. But I was stressing that night about hitting that note, and I hadn't even talked to Gig about it. I said, "Oh man, I hope that song doesn't take me past my limit." And
We get past the
Well,
limit.
here's another thing, and I'll slather a little more praise on you because that's what this whole thing's about tonight. And and actually, again, just once again, it speaks to your ethic. When Jim Wootten, that's what he's called, Jim Wootten. Yeah. When he first joined the long run, the TLR, you having been a tenor all your life and never needing a falsetto, you didn't have one.
I didn't. No,
you didn't have a falsetto, and you quickly realized, no, I better get one. Well, you just decided, I'm going to get one. Plenty of guys gals will come into a situation and say, well, I just don't do that. That's not part of my instrument. But you just said, well, I guess it's going to need to be part of my instrument, so I'm going to get a falsetto.
That's right.
And now, to use again, the TLR show as the example, you're singing this ridiculously high, somewhat gymnastic part on the top end of one of these nights.
Oh,
which kind of dogs can hear.
Nobody else. Our dogs, yes.
Yes, but it does again stick to the bull-headed, stubborn work ethic of Jim Wootten.
Yeah. And people ask me, they said, hey, how did you learn how to sing falsetto, sing in those registers? And honestly, Gig, I just started putting on Bee Gees records from the Staying Alive, Night Fever, all that stuff. Started singing along with it and started to, develop that end of my voice, which, helped me immensely once I was going back in and trying to sing those parts at the end of Take It to the Limit.
And this happened all within earshot of you?
Well, I mean, I was just in a whirlwind because I grew up with teachers. I did not grow up with musicians. So when I met Jim Wootten, and that's another thing, I'll just throw that in. When I met Jim, and this is another little, just a little side note, Jim was the worst leader of our church. He was not a musician. So all of you who think
you have to be a musician to be a worship leader of a church.
All of you who think I was the groupie, I was not. I had no clue. Had I known, no, I'm just teasing. I would make the same choice because I have the best husband in the world and the most talented husband in the world. And I'm about to show you.
You just alienated a bunch of husbands.
And I'm about to show you Macy's bill tomorrow, but that doesn't mean anything. You know what I do want to talk about? We've talked about your father, Red Wootten, your mother, who, we haven't talked about your mother, who was an amazing singer, who I had the privilege of being in my home for 13 years, took care of her till the day she passed.
Yeah.
She sang with your uncle, who, let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, yeah. So my mom's sister was Mary Ford, and she married Les Paul in the early 50s, and they had so many hits in the early 50s. I think from 1950 to 1954, they had like 16 top 20 hits. So they were very prolific at that time and really helped to shape the sound of pop music early on there. Now they were married up until 1964. I didn't have a whole lot of interaction with him until later on in life when we'd go to see his shows, because he lived in New Jersey the entire time. He always resided there. He never did move to the West Coast. But when he and my Aunt Mary had divorced, she moved back and bought a ranch in Monrovia, California. And they had a son, Bobby Paul was his name. And he actually lived right next door to me at my grandma's house for many years. And he was an incredible drummer, one of the first drummers that I played with in any of the bands that I was in. And so he and I were, really, really close at the end of my high school years and into my early 20s.
So I have to tell you, I had the pleasure of meeting Les Paul, maybe 1996, 1997 at the House
Yes.
of Blues.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
when I met him, he knew, we showed up at the gig. It was House of Blues Anaheim is what I
Yeah.
remember.
That's
So
right.
I really didn't know who he was. I mean, I hate to say that, but I was raised with teachers. I was not really. So Jim had this cool uncle who played the guitar, and he's like, "I'm going to take you to House of Blues," and my uncle plays the guitar, and so we watched the show, and I'm watching the show, and I'm thinking, "Wow, he's really good."
It was so funny. Gig. We're sitting there watching the show, and this guy comes up, long, dark, curly hair with a top hat, and starts playing slide along with Les as Les is playing along. Bender's like, "Who's that?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's Slash from
Slash. Yeah.
she had no clue.
I have to tell you, Les got word that Jim was in the house and came out and talked to us and like, "Yeah, I'll bring back." And I was still thinking, wow, he's really old and he plays good.
Well, you realize people are saying that about us.
Well, probably.
Well, people don't say I play good, but they say Jim plays good.
But I have to tell you, when I met Les, he loved Jim. He was very complimentary. He wanted to know you. I mean, I know that, he was on the road a lot. You grew up with him in your younger years, but he absolutely loved you. And, it was a pleasure meeting him. And
it was, I'm so glad you.
after the fact, after I met him, because I was just thinking he was an old uncle who played really good.
It's so good you had that opportunity. Huh? At the end of the night, I said, "Okay, Uncle Les, we'll see you next year." He was 87 at the time, and he said, "You know what?" He says, "I don't know that I'm going to be back." And I said, "What? No, you got to come back." And he says, "Yeah." He says, I don't think that that my body is able to take that plane trip from coast to coast anymore. So I'm pretty much going to relegate my live performances to the East Coast." And he was right. He never did come back. Now, there was a possibility in 1990. Remember, we were going to the Pacific Amphitheater to see. No, it wasn't 1990. He was turning 90.
Yeah.
He was turning 90 years old, and they were having a big celebration. Jeff Beck was going to be there. A lot of big name guitar players, Peter Frampton, and they were going to honor him that night. And he ended up getting pneumonia and never made the trip out.
Couldn't come.
He recovered when he was 90 from that bout of pneumonia and lived another 4 years, but he never made another trip out to the West Coast.
Well, and I had the pleasure of having your mom in our home for 13 years, and she told me a ton of stories about her time with Mary Ford, her sister. And your mom had this amazing voice as well. So it was, you're a very blessed guy. You come from a very musical family. Your dad, I remember watching him in the living room play the bass, and my Uncle Bob, my mom's brother, still to this day, he's the only living member, left of those siblings. Out of 7. Yeah, he's 85 now, and he's still just a phenomenal guitar player.
I remember.
Studio musician.
I want to actually acknowledge a question here that's been hanging there for a little bit. It jumps a little bit back to a previous topic, but then I have a kind of a second part to the question. David Garcia asked, "What's your memory of meeting John Paul Jones?" We talked about, of course, you met Jimmy Page. We talked about you met Randy Meisner, but then, of course, John Paul Jones is who you emulate the most.
Oh yeah.
How was the impact of that for you?
Oh man, I'm telling you, Gig, I was as giddy as a schoolboy. I was like,
and that was in London. That was in London.
That was in London. So right after basically what happened was when we went out there to London, we had no idea where our seats were going to be, but they told us to go to a hotel. They said, don't go to the O2 Arena like everybody else to pick your tickets up. Go to this hotel on this, at this address. Go up to this floor. I think it was like the 14th floor or something.
And we walked from a train.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. And so they said, I was standing there. I walked up to get my my ticket, and she said, "Okay, so here's your band. This will act as your ticket into the show. Here is your pass to the rehearsal sound check the day before, and here is the after show party pass." And after Brenda picked me up off of the floor, it's like,
you gotta keep in mind that to go to this Zeppelin show, it wasn't a simple buy a ticket. It was, you had to enter a lottery. If you won the lottery ticket, then
20 million people.
So it wasn't.
No, it wasn't a thing where you could get tickets easily. 20 million people had entered the lottery, and only 18,000 would end up with tickets. So we were so incredibly fortunate to be able to go to that. But at that after show party,
always tells me it was wasted on me.
No, it was.
It was wasted. It was wasted on me. Because I was like, yeah, fine, it's great.
Yeah. But when meeting John Paul Jones that night after the show was absolutely an incredible experience. And I just told him, I said, thank you for all the great work over the years. Your bass playing inspired me to pick it up and continue to play it. And that's what I'm doing to this day. I had my Led Zeppelin jacket on, and so I showed him that. And, he acknowledged it and said, "Oh, thank you." He was a very humble guy. In fact, I think you have a picture of it there, honey. Is there a picture?
You did not send me the John Paul Jones, but
I did not. Oh, I thought I did. I thought I had sent that over to you.
I know.
Yeah, but that was a thrilling experience. It was unbelievable because I just have the highest, utmost respect for that guy. What he brought to the table with Led Zeppelin was indispensable. They would have been as good as they were with anybody else because he added so much as a multi-instrumentalist that it allowed them to do so many different styles of music, which was what made Led Zeppelin what they were.
Yeah.
The second part of the idea, I'm going to try to frame it in such a way that it makes some sense and becomes something that you can talk about and want to.
Yeah.
When you met John Paul Jones, of course, it was after seeing him and seeing him play. And when we meet our musical heroes, and we've all met some of them. We met other members of the Eagles, Tim Schmidt, Walsh, Felder, and so on.
That's right.
You want to be able to express to them what they've meant to you. But you have only so many credentials that make you feel like it matters. Right, now, you, of course, in this particular instance, you guys had breached a lot of layers to get in and say, okay, as you're meeting this musical hero, at least you come with a little bit of sense of, oh, yeah, maybe this young but tall man does understand what I do.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's, we want to say hello to these guys, whether it's people we meet at the NAMM show or under other circumstances after a show they've done. And we are a little bit, what can we say that is in any way what we want to say or different from what they've been told a jillion other times beforehand?
Yes.
The part I want to get to is, you've had several instances, and you even kind of had one the other night with Purebred, where somebody attends a show. It's either like with Jimmy Page or Randy Meisner, somebody that was in an original act that you're performing in, or somebody that was closely associated. And that is what is your feeling about the experience that you feel they had in watching you work? And as part of it, maybe, wow, I got the opportunity to demonstrate what their music or music of their loved one has meant to me.
That's right.
Yes. Oh, yeah. You know, in fact, I think I told Brenda on my way home, leading up to that night that Jimmy Page came to see the group, I had worked so hard to try to be the best at what I do. I always had the thought in my mind that, hey, I'm going to learn this stuff so accurately that there may be somebody else out there in the world that does it as accurately, but they're not ever going to do it more accurately than me. That was what I set out to do. And so I was practicing late hours into the night. Brenda would come into the living room at 2 a.m. and I'd be playing the keyboard and she said, "Come on, you got to go to bed." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just working out this one part." I just wanted to be the absolute best at doing what I did. And the night that he came, Jimmy Page said, "You know, listening to you guys play this stuff, you weren't just playing the songs, you were inside of the music." It was, and Steve Zukowski replied to him and said, "Yeah, well, we've heard it a few times." Well, it was so rewarding for him to say that, because I thought all of those hours of hard work finally paid off. And I felt much the same way with Randy Meisner there. I sang, you know, Take It to the Limit for him, and I hit the high note, and I thought, oh man, you know, he was very complimentary afterwards. He said the bass playing was spot on, and man, it just doesn't get better than that. It's to know that the guy you're emulating or paying tribute to his band appreciates what you do because he feels like you're doing it, you know, at a high level.
Highest honor.
Yeah. And there is, you know, as time goes on and as you work as a professional, you do feel a part of a musician and a music community.
Yes.
When it's validated by the presence of somebody who is famous for what they did in the musical community, you do feel like, oh God, I'm a little bit in that club. I'm, you know, and if they came and attended and sat through a whole show and were entertained, you know, that sort of full circle experience.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And not everybody, but so many of our contemporaries in this tribute field have had that experience of one kind or another that, you know, somehow, wow, it started with respect and listening and emulation and then portraying and maybe a play acting a little bit. And then you go through the period of almost, God, do I have to look over my shoulder? Am I stealing? Or should we not be doing this? You go through all of those things. And then finally, somebody kind of comes and pats you on the back and says, "You really did that well." And you get to thank them. "Well, thank you for creating the stuff that I could do well."
Right. Yeah, exactly. I said that to Jimmy. I said, "You were the architect of the whole thing. You wrote the material, you produced it all. I mean, you know, we are completely in awe of what you were able to accomplish in rock and roll history." But you know, I've always thought of it this way too. Gig, you probably feel the same way. But when you're playing those songs, I just have so much respect for those guys that I never want to do a half-baked job of learning the material, because I would hate for them to come to a show and listen to me play and say, "Oh, yeah, that wasn't very good." You know, that would be crushing to me to have that kind of response. I mean, same thing as when Jimmy Sakurai had Jimmy Page come in and watch him play and got a standing ovation. That's the kind of response you want to get from it, because, you know, it's such a great thing to have the original artist, you know, appreciate your emulation of them that much, you know.
It is kind of a gift. I think that those original artists that are the most accepting, open, warm, humble, big-hearted, they were able to look and get the gift of, my God, the work that I sweated over, all the fights, all the money issues,
That's right.
all the traveling, all the things that being that climbing up through those ranks to get to the point of fame and fortune brings with it, is being paid back to me in this way too. That, you know, my work lives on, having affected this person, and they're showing me how much it meant to them through their performance of it.
It's huge. So,
Yes.
so then I ask you, Jim Wootten, because that's what I call you, Jim
Honey,
Wootten.
we're on a first name basis at this point.
Do you have any regrets about your career? Is there anything you would have done differently? Anything you would have, if you think about from, I don't know, from the beginning of when you started playing music to where you are today, do you feel like there's anything you would have chosen or a path you would have taken differently? What do you think you would have done?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I had stopped playing music the first time I had gotten married. I stopped playing in bands anyway. And I really wish I hadn't done that. I would have liked to continue to play through to see what kind of opportunities would have presented themselves to me, because by the time I kind of picked it back up again, I was 33 years old.
How long did you stop playing music for?
What's that? I stopped playing in bands for 8 years.
Wow.
8 years. So that kind of stunted my musical development to some degree, because when playing in a band, it keeps you at the top of your game. I continued to play music during that time, but you know, not with the same motivation that I would had I been in a band. So I would have done that differently. I would have said, no, I'm going to keep playing. I'm going to keep striving to do this. I never thought I'd be making a living at it at that point. You know, if you would have told me that I'd be playing music for a living from the time I think I started doing nothing else but music in 2010. Right. So if you would have told me that, you know, when I was in my 20s, I wouldn't have believed you. But you know, the right opportunity came around. I was in the right place at the right time, and you know, happened to be able to capitalize on it. So there is a regret. I would have never stopped playing in bands. I would have continued to work hard at my craft, and you know, been open to seeing what other kind of opportunities would have come about, you know, because of that.
Well, I have to tell you, it's been a fun ride for me. I was raised with teachers. I was not raised with musicians. And when I met Jim Wootten, I feel very blessed. So this actually, this is the year we met, 1994.
Oh, look at those two.
I was 27. Jim was 34.
You really
33. I was 33. Don't put more years on me than
33. So I have to tell you, I mean, it was a whole new world for me. I did not meet Jim as a musician. Some of you may not know this, but Jim was the worship leader of our church. Had I known he was a musician, no, I'm just teasing. No, I would have done exactly the same thing. But it's been the best ride. I've gotten to meet my very best friend, Gary Grantham. We've had a fun ride, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's been fun. I mean, in my wildest dreams did I never imagine that I would be a part of a music world, but I've loved every minute of it, and I'm grateful to be a part of what you've brought me into, what you bring to the table, and I appreciate all this. But,
by the way, Annie, Patty Rodriguez says I'm channeling a Bee Gee there. Interesting thing about Patty, we went to kindergarten together.
Oh! Yeah.
So we've known each other pretty much for 55 years. Isn't that insane? Thanks for joining us tonight, Patty. But also, Larry has a question for us. He says, "How did WAW come about?" Let me be the questioner on this one.
Yeah, you can go ahead and talk about that.
No, you answer it, honey.
Okay.
I've been talking all night.
WAW came about during the middle of the pandemic. So in March, everything shut down. Our world came to a screeching halt, and I have to tell you, we didn't hate it.
I didn't. I miss it.
Jim and I, we got into our pajamas, and I think we stayed in our pajamas from March to December. I feel like we were in our pajamas for probably about 7 months.
Oh yeah,
7 months.
You guys did not smell good.
No, we did not. But we had fun.
Yeah. Good.
And we just decided to start a live stream and connect with our friends and family through Facebook Live because it was available to us.
Yeah.
And our coin phrase was, "Were important topics of the day were largely ignored," which was everything that was hitting us in the face constantly during 2020, and foolishness reigned supreme. So it just kind of evolved into finding out about our friends and our co-workers.
Yeah, your contemporaries, your peers. The show did have a particular charm.
Yeah.
Then I mean,
we kind of squabbled online.
I know.
Yeah, it was. I think people got to see like the real like.
Hey, I still remember fondly that when I got to play that strange gardener that was just behind you guys. I think that's where you peaked. That's where WAW
That's right.
peaked.
When
From
Gig-
here on, it's
when-
kind of been
When Gig made a guest appearance on our show, that's where we really
Yes.
hit big time. Anyway, so WAW was just kind of brought into the forefront because we didn't want to talk about everything that was going on in our world today. We wanted to just have an hour of connecting, and it's we did it.
Yeah.
And then we just kind of took it to our friend base and started finding out about why everybody started when they started and what was the reason, and it was a good thing. So here we are interviewing Jim Wootten.
And I know we're coming up on time probably here, but I have a question and a half left. You mentioned a lot earlier, I think, when talking about the beginnings of maybe Deja Vu, Led Zeppelin again.
Yes.
Talking about, hey, it didn't matter. You made play for $50, $100 a guy. My question to you is, people make more than that doing this?
No,
Because I haven't gotten that memo. No,
just a little bit.
but I know that I think another place that your lovely wife and my co-host wanted to go was actually just looking to the future. And at some point, I told you this. I heard Mark Baxter, vocal coach Mark Baxter, say recently that artists, the artist never retires. The artist just expires.
Wow.
Kind of like you remain artistic, you remain an artist if you choose to.
Yes.
For the remainder of your days.
I like that though. I think that's great.
That's great. That's great.
When you think about the eventuality of stepping off the stage as an active player, other than being a fan and an audience member of music, watching basketball and eating boxes of See's candy and promoting things even when you have nothing more to promote. How do you see it all playing into your life? Maybe the both of you, the two of you in the future, and how music may remain there.
I know.
Yeah.
I can answer that.
Kind of why I asked the question.
He will.
Go ahead.
I promise you, as long as Jim has a working finger and breathing, music will never not be a part of what he does. It'll never happen. The minute Jim takes his last breath, that'll be the last note you'll hear. Hopefully that's the long ways away.
Yeah, because she can't afford to have me retire at this point.
No. Hey,
when you think about that question, Woot, what are the things that come to mind? And obviously, as Brenda was saying a moment ago, with the inception of WAW, there was a pandemic. As she said, we didn't hate it. You get it.
No.
Many of us got a glimpse of how retirement would look on us.
Yeah.
And many of us thought, I don't mind the way that looks, seems kind of appealing.
Well, we didn't love the no income.
Yeah.
That was not good.
No, that kind of
Everything else was fun.
But, yeah, I mean, in my retirement, if you could base it upon the time that we were homebound with COVID, the things I see in my future are probably bedpans and catheters. No, I'm just kidding.
Was that a Disney movie?
I'm joking.
That was bed knobs and broomsticks. Bedpans and catheters.
I'm gonna have to hire a nanny because
I'm not doing it for you.
it could be our nanny.
Oh my God!
No,
Is that pay more than $50 or $100?
By the way, my good friend from high school, Monica Sanchez, asked what I did prior to becoming a full-time musician, and you want to answer that, honey?
Well, I mean, yeah. So before coming a full-time musician, he was actually a bookkeeper, a basketball coach, and a worship leader, and that is how I actually met Jim Wootten.
Yeah.
He was the worship leader of the church, and I would go to church and I would just gaze up at him being totally in love with the worship leader. That was wrong. I'm not caring. He was not a musician. He was not a rock and roll guy. He was the accountant of my children's private school. And then he was the worship leader. So
I did that for 20 years.
Yeah. So I absolutely fell in love with him, paying my monthly nut for my kids' private school every extra, and he wouldn't take it.
All I remember of Jim during that period of time was that every time I called him at work, I knew I was waking him up from a nap.
Oh God! I knew about those days. Yes, he would take little naps in the office because it was a small Christian school.
Yes. I'd call. He'd get off that back couch wherever he hid, and come to the phone
Wherever he hid,
and he would say, New Horizon, this is Jim. May I help you?
That was some years ago.
I know it feels
but that's how I met him. I'm telling you right now. I was in la love with the accountant and the bookkeeper and the worship leader and the basketball coach at the school that my children attended.
That's right. She's trying to convince you those were all the same guy.
Yeah. And then he became a rock and roll star.
Yeah, and that again downhill.
Exactly, yeah.
It's been
She's
a fun
been
ride.
hitting life ever since.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride. Not ever in my lifetime did I ever think that I would have a lifetime like this, but it's good. I'm loving it.
Yeah,
I'm loving it. I'm loving it,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful. If it ends tomorrow, I'm grateful and thankful.
Yeah, let's hope it can go for a little while longer.
I think people will be grateful if this ends momentarily.
I know. I feel like we're extending our time.
No.
I was going to say, I'm sorry. What?
Oh, no. Go ahead, Gay.
Oh, I was just going to say that, I hope, I've loved participating in this. Thanks for asking, both of you.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Thanks for
hope
being a part of it, Gay.
that, you get, when you are sitting in this seat, you do a lot of listening, and a lot of smiling and a lot of laughing, taking in what everybody else has to say, prompting answers, asking questions, and people know you as a very easy to get along with, affable guy, very polite, and they probably think of you, many that don't know you well, as a man of few words. Man, that ain't true.
That ain't true.
But no, but I'm so glad. I'm glad that I've been able to sit here and just allow you to tell stories.
Yep.
Yeah. I appreciate the opportunity.
Here's Jim before the music business. And
That was a basketball uniform?
So no, this is actually when Jim played Jesus in a school play.
That was during my God complex years.
But it fits so well. So shall we end with What did I admit? Jim's got a problem.
Oh yeah, I think you should. Yes, this last
Oh,
graphic
man.
says it all.
So this is
Yeah.
this is everything that Jim is involved in, and you guys, Led Zeppelin, The Long Run, Deja Vu, tribute to Crosby, Stills and Nash, TMT, tribute to James Taylor, Carole King, and then we have Tailor Made, tribute to James Taylor, Purebred, tribute to the music of Bred and David Gates, Sweet Seasons, which is a tribute to Carole King, and Heart of Gold, which is Neil Young. I don't know, you guys. Make your own assessment on this.
Yeah, that's a.
I've developed my own assessment. And you know what? If this makes him happy, so be it.
By the way, so we do have one show coming up this weekend. Gig, if you're not doing anything, you'd like to come. Purebred's playing at Alva's showroom at 4 p.m. on Sunday.
On
Alva's
Sunday?
showroom yeah, it's in San Pedro. Gig has played there many times with me in the
Yeah,
past.
yeah, Alvin's showroom. It's a good room. It's a good room.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
I was
Purebred,
supposed to run a 5K that day, and I think that's not
Are you being funny or really?
supposed to be a 5K with KK, but I don't
Oh.
think that's happening. I think
Okay.
I'm not doing that. But
We're bringing KK.
I
too.
might
Yeah.
I might come out. That'd be
Alright.
kind of fun. I still
great
haven't.
to have you. Yeah, and
You know?
and Gig.
all
Like Gig
good.
said, we actually had David Gates' son come to the last performance.
That's
which
what we
was
were. Yeah.
thrilling
That was pretty cool.
experience for us. It was so
Cool.
great. And if everyone out there likes the music of Bred, I highly encourage you to come and join us
good
on
show.
Sunday.
So
Yeah.
Alva's showroom at 4 p.m. In San Pedro, Sunday the 30th.
And you know what's so funny is when you first started playing in the Spread group, I thought, I know 1-2 songs. I was shocked to
Oh,
know
yeah.
how many songs I knew about a Bred. Amazing songs.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Really
So you
sweet.
guys come out to Alvis
Yeah.
Sunday, San Pedro. What time?
4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
We're going to be playing from 4 to 6.
And where can
and
they
it's
find the information
$20.
if they want to buy tickets? Where can they find the information?
Yeah, they can just go over to the Alva's, ALVAS, Alva's showroom in San Pedro. Go to their website and you can purchase tickets right online. I think they're $20.
Okay. All right.
A bargain at twice that.
Yeah. Thanks, Gig.
Do you want to, before we send you packing and just talk about you, do you want to mention TLR's couple of shows for next week?
Oh yeah.
And you to come to those because you are the promotional guy.
Yes.
That's right. TLR, we're playing on Wednesday of next week in Palm Springs. Now, do we know the name of that park, Gig? We don't have
know the
that
whole thing
info.
downtown Palm Springs, and the one thing I know that we'll be looking for to help us figure out the destination, they have moved. I think it's actually on the Palm Springs Museum property, but there's like a 26-foot statue of Marilyn Monroe, kind of the famous, getting the skirt blown up pose, and there's a big statue, and we're somewhere near there.
So what we'll do is when we find out the information, we'll put it on Jim's gig guide.
Yes.
The information will be on
Absolutely.
Jim's gig guide.
Yes.
And that's going to be a Wednesday night. I believe it's the 2nd, February 2nd of next week.
Yeah.
Wednesday night. And in fact, next week is going to be an extremely busy week for me. Starting Wednesday, we're playing with TLR. And I believe it's going to be free to the public, right, Gig?
I think so, yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. The very next night, I'm playing with Deja Vu, the acoustic group is going to be opening for the Gilmore Project at the Coach House, starting, I believe, at about 7 p.m. And then the night after that, Tailor Made Tapestry.
What's the date on that?
That'd be the 3rd
So
That's
February
the
3rd.
for the David.
Yeah.
Yes, and then the 4th, the very next night, Tailor Made Tapestry is playing at the Coach House, doing the Troubadour reunion show at that performance. That's at 8 p.m. on the 4th. very next night, the big show for TLR, we're playing at the Canyon in Santa Clarita. We want to invite you all to come down to that one. Love that venue. Always a great energy from the crowd.
Yeah, we get a great energy.
I'm going to need everyone to meet me there.
Oh yeah.
Yep. It's going to be a party.
Yeah. Yes. And then last but not least, we're on the 6th. February the 6th, we're playing with Sweet Seasons at Alva's showroom, doing the entire Tapestry album in its entirety. So, along with all her other hits. So it's gonna be a wild and woolly week.
Oh,
hopefully, the following week, I'm gonna be okay and can do the show with you, and I'm not getting sick again like I did the last week. So it's going to be a great week of shows, starting this Sunday with Purebred at Alva's showroom at 4 p.m.
All right.
Well, boy, I think that you've had a lot of audience viewership tonight.
And I
credit myself mostly with that, but don't laugh because that's a. I did it with too straight a face.
I know. I was like, well, I was trying to process what you were saying. So everybody who asked questions and didn't get an answer, we had so many questions coming through. Jim Wootten is going to spend the next 3 days answering all your questions.
Wow.
You know,
Sending out a snail mail thank yous.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that was.
And thank you, Gig, for
my pleasure.
Thanks, Greg. I appreciate it, man.
Nobody better
quite
with the
passable.
part. No, we're gonna go have dinner right now.
Yeah,
somewhere.
Okay. Will you let me out of the basement first so I can go with you? I'm chained to this chair right now, guys. I can't go anywhere.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Jim Wootten, because I have to call you Jim.
You're welcome, Brenda Wootten. I've been a big fan of the show for quite some time now.
I'll love to hear a little bit about you. I know there's so much more, but I'm so glad we got to kind of dive into a little bit of what you are about and what your family history is about. And
I think, by the way, I'm going to make this proclamation and declaration right here now. I think that you and I, some point, have to interview Brenda.
Oh,
that's a great idea.
I think there's a lot, as one of the queens on the court of tribute jackass wives. of a well-known tribute jackass.
Good with that.
People probably don't know. They probably say, "What?"
I have a little story.
I refer to us all as tribute jackasses, very affectionately. So yes, you do. Yes, you do. And it would be interesting. See, that's me just booking myself one more time here.
Love
Absolutely. No, I think we got to do it, Gig. We've got to do it. And I just want to take a quick second. I've seen a lot of really nice comments coming through on the sidebar there. So just wanted to thank everyone so much for the really kind words and for clicking on and spending the last hour and 45 minutes with us.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. I got He's like, how many times can you say that in 1 hour? All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We had a fantastic time. Next week, we'll let you know.
Yeah, that's right. And so next week, Gig's not going to be able to say this with us next week. So hopefully he'll say it with us right now. We're going to ask the eternal question.
What's happening?
Next week we have Bill Worrell joining us.
When?
We're working stuff out. Bill Worrell is going to be our next guest.
Yes.
And we're going to talk to Bill about his time with America.
Yeah.
His projects he has going on.
Yeah.
So he has an interesting story too.
Love Bill.
Yeah, he has a dad.
And more importantly, he's going to talk about his time with TLR, right? Yeah.
And his time.
That is more important.
All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us again. Thank you, Jim Wootten, for joining us. Thank you, Gig, for being my amazing guest host.
My pleasure.
And we will see you next
Thank you,
week.
Gig.
I'm ready for wine and food now.
Yep.
All
Bye,
right.
guys.